We want to get to Tennessee's win on the hardwood. The Vols beat Gardner-Webb. What are your major takeaways from Tennessee beating Gardner-Webb?
The big story of Tennessee beating Gardner-Webb is that Tennessee, and this is a weird thing to say, Dave, honestly does not look like a Rick Barnes coach team right now. And
for better or for worse?
For worse, but honestly, it's the thing that you thought would hold Rick Barnes back was not this. They got some defensive issues, like some serious defensive issues. Chaz Lanier is a baller. Chaz Lanier can be a go-to scorer just like Dalton Knecht was. He was 4 or 6 from 3 the other day, last night. Tennessee had like a 75-51 lead at one point and let Gardner-Webb close with 13 points. Tennessee wins 80-64. Now, in your mind, you're thinking holding a team to 64 points, that's what defenses do to win a game. No, that's what you're supposed to do against high-level competition. If you're a Rick Barnes caliber defensive team, you hold the Gardner-Webbs to under 50 points, right? Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but what about the fact that, like, Darlington Dubar, Bishop Boswell didn't play? I mean, does that factor
Well, that's the other red flag.
Okay.
You know why Darlington Dubar is not playing.
Right.
Rick Barnes has said he hasn't grasped the defense yet. And see, this is the big difference that, look, I always debated with you on the Dalton Knecht as the go-to scorer as if Tennessee couldn't replicate that. They can replicate it. They are replicating it. They'll have it with Chaz Lanier, and I think Darlington Dubar is capable of doing it too. But the difference was Dalton Knecht picked up the defense pretty quickly and got better, like, very quickly as the season was going on. I'm not so sure. You know, you think Darlington Dubar can pick it up as time goes on, but Dave, he didn't even play in the opener. Like, how behind is he if he didn't even play in the opener against Gardner-Webb? And I mean, I'll ask you, do you think this is Rick Barnes being too principled again, like wasting a really good offensive talent because of his principles on defense? Or is he that
Yeah, but
bad?
I think you can do that against Gardner-Webb, even if that's the case, right?
Yeah, but if it's an offensive talent, don't you want them to get into their rhythm and play more? And I
don't think he's as worried about rhythm until it gets into January. I think that's when you saw Dalton Knecht really hit his stride last year. Part of that was being able to play defense. So I think he would be willing to sit a guy and make a statement against Gardner-Webb. Now, the other issue is that Felix Okpara has a hip pointer that was mentioned, and JP Estrella, I've been told, has a lower leg injury. So I think that you also have to make sure that this team is healthy heading into SEC play, right?
Yes, you absolutely do. And I think that's another big focus of Rick Barnes is because, yes, JP Estrella playing is kind of a concern too. I think the big thing, though, is with Rick Barnes is you always expected the defense to be there. Is that fair to say? You always expected for the defense to be there. So I do think it's concerning for Tennessee that hasn't happened yet.
It's one game.
Yeah, but that's something that they're consistent on. With Tennessee during the Rick Barnes era, you're worried about those offensive droughts, those 9 to 10 minute offensive droughts. Now, you had some of those against Gardner-Webb, not 9 to 10 minutes, but you had a few, but I didn't worry too much because they didn't play Estrella and they didn't have Darlington Dubar ready to go. The worry is why they didn't have Dubar ready to go and their defense. So I'm raising the red flag that this could be a Rick Barnes team that doesn't play to Rick Barnes standards, that has defensive issues. And that's something that if it's at the start of the season, it'll be there at the end of the season. Look, last year, we can talk about this, Dave. You were high on Dalton Knecht from the start. I'll give it to you. You watch about 2 games worth and you're like, that guy is good. And the thing that was different, though, and I think you and I both agree, while Dalton was a scorer, he didn't have any trouble adjusting to Rick Barnes' defensive schemes at all. He had no trouble whatsoever. There was a bit of a weakness for him, but he immediately picked it up at least.
Okay, but it's been highly reported that he wanted to come into Barnes' system to learn defense and have more discipline in his life. That's more the exception than the rule.
Yes, but that has been what the assumption has been that all of these fifth-year guys going to Rick Barnes are doing. I mean, Darlington Dubar committed for the exact same reason. He saw Dalton Knecht, and I'm pretty sure he saw Dalton Knecht, and he said, I could do that. And so why is he struggling to pick up the defense? Is it complicated? I mean, Rick Barnes doesn't run that complicated of a defense, honestly. I mean, he complements his traditional flex offense that he used to run. He used to run some 2-2-1 press, but now he just runs an aggressive tempo-based man. I mean, it's not like the schemes are that complex. So my guess is, I mean, what's weird is that this means that Darnold Swindler just doesn't know how to play defense, quite honestly, which is weird.
That's not unusual in these AAU days. I will just say that. Pseudo Sham says Gardner-Webb lost all of their top scorers and was still competitive with us. I'm worried. Is that fair?
Yes. I would be worried too. Yeah, I agree. They lost all their scores and they still dropped. I wouldn't say they were competitive. The game was in hand. Tennessee was up 75-51. Gardner-Webb had a strong finish. I think the concern is that Gardner-Webb was able to score the way they were scoring. And this is an early red flag. Now, again, you're right. It's college basketball. It's not college football, so you got plenty of time to get better. I mean, you can slump through November in college basketball. And, you know, my favorite time of the year, I don't know if it is for you, but my favorite time of the year is Thanksgiving week, when you have those college basketball tournaments, which there's all these marquee college basketball games early in the season, plus you still have college football going. So it's a lot of fun during that time. To me, the best gig in the world, you tell me, is covering college basketball and being able to go to Hawaii for Thanksgiving.
That's not a bad deal. Adam said this team is built for a full court press. We're going to get bullied dropping back to half court and slowing things down on offense. Is that fair?
Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler are built for a full court press. Rick Barnes is not, like, people think Rick Barnes is old school. He's not averse to pressing. Rick Barnes loves tempo a lot. I think Rick Barnes' concern right now, and the reason he may not do it at this point, is if Dubar's not ready and if JP Estrella's banged up, part of your full court press is you got to be able to run a lot of guys. I mean, Dave, you know that Bruce Pearl had to get a really deep roster before he could really run what he wanted to run. And he was playing, there was a period where he was playing 2-stars and walk-ons that didn't belong on the court because he just wanted to make sure he had the depth to be able to run his full court press. I mean, Stephen Pearl getting on the court is evidence of that.
Well, that is that as the coach.
Well, okay, and a couple of, Josh Tabb, Ryan Childress, these guys that should not have been playing were on the court because Bruce Pearl just had to go he didn't have a choice. He had to go 10 deep. If you want to run that up-tempo full court press, which Kim Caldwell is going to run, you can't do it unless you can go 10 to 12 deep.
Okay, I think this is a little too early to be worried about a basketball team after one game, but I will put it on the poll question. Are you worried about ball hoops? Yes or no? I'll just make it very clear. I'll throw that out there right now. I think it's a little bit too early.